Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Cottages, and today's guest is Mark Maxfield. He is the CEO of the Cottages Assisted Living and Memory Care, an organization that offers assisted living, memory care, adult daycare, and respite services within comfortable residential-style homes. Their mission is to create close-knit communities where each resident can receive personalized care from dedicated staff. Now, under Mark's leadership, the Cottages has expanded to 10 locations since it opened its first home in 2001. Mark has celebrated over 23 years of working with the business, and he has also served as the president of the Idaho Healthcare Association. He currently holds the position of chair of the National Center for Assisted Living's Board of Directors, symbolizing his commitment to advancing care standards nationally. Mark's experience in the long-term care industry spans operations management, leadership, and entrepreneurship, making him a trusted voice in senior living. He is also recognized for his dedication to employee development and positive impact across the senior living industry. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefitsagency.com. Now back to our guest today, the CEO of the Cottages, Mark Maxfield. Appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anthony.
Okay, so before you started the Cottages, what did your work experience look like? How did it kind of lead you to where you are now?
Yeah, great question. Before this, and it's been a while, like you mentioned, almost 24 years, I call myself a social worker. I was running group homes for delinquent boys. They're teenagers, so they've had some troubles in life. Not old enough to go into the adult system, but definitely weren't allowed to be at home anymore. So we put them in group homes, and I did that for about 8 or 9 years.
And what came after that? Was it right into starting the Cottages, or there's something else in between?
I did some things before that, but yeah, correct. After that, I teamed up with my father actually, and moved back home to Idaho and opened our first home.
So why specifically this type of business?
Yeah, so there's a real need for assisted living out there, and there was back then as well. And frankly, I didn't know what assisted living was. My dad, he kind of watched my career, and he said, "Hey, son, do you want to come back home, do some assisted living?" And my question was, "That sounds pretty good. What's that?" I didn't even know what it was. And he basically said, "We're going to take care of people like Grandpa." And my grandfather and I were very close. He lived to be 100. He was in a nursing home, fallen, died, and he would have loved to have been in an assisted living facility. He was appropriate, but in that small town where he lived, there just wasn't one available. There wasn't as many around back then. And so I thought, yeah, I want to do that.
And so did your dad have a background in the industry?
He did. He'd had some background in development, the real estate development side of assisted living. And then so when we teamed up, same thing. He would develop and build the property, and then I would take over and run the business side, run the operations.
But who did you learn from how to run the business and the operations side of a care facility? It's not something you had done before.
Correct. I had worked in homes and known how to work with residents of the home. I had worked with staff in leadership position, and a lot of it just trial by fire. One thing, probably one of the best decisions I made though, is I said, well, okay, if I'm going to work in assisted living and work with caregivers, I need to know what they do. So I went and got a job as a caregiver for close to 6 months. Just working in the home, nights, weekends, toileting, feeding, pass meds, the whole thing, just so I'd have at least a basic understanding of what it is my caregivers will do and what's the nut and bolts of the assisted living business itself.
So once you knew that you were going to come back home, you were going to start this business with your father, you're like, yeah, I gotta understand this from more of a grassroots level. You went and got a job somewhere else, so you had kind of that base level of experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's something I still draw on from today. And believe it or not, it gives me some credibility with the caregivers. Yeah, I'm the boss, and some think, well, the boss doesn't know what we do. But I said, oh no, I was a caregiver. I know exactly what you do, which is why I appreciate you so much.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's,
So you started that first facility. What year was it? 2000.
I built it through 2000, opened it in 2000, towards the middle of 2001.
Okay.
And interesting enough, we built it on my grandparents' land.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of bringing it back. It's full circle the term. I don't know. It was just really neat though to put it on land that, and build a place that he would have enjoyed being at. So that's kind of been my guiding principle. I'm taking care of grandpas and grandmas.
Yeah, I like that. So you started this first facility in 2001. What were
Mm-hmm.
those early days, weeks, months like? Starting a new business that you didn't have a ton of experience in. I have to imagine there were probably some tough days.
There were. I was just young and dumb enough to not realize what I was getting into. And thank goodness, I think a lot of good businesses start that way. They think, yeah, I can do this. And so you dive in and not realize what you're doing. And no doubt I made some mistakes, but my very first hire was probably the best hire of my life. And she had experience in skilled nursing facilities. And so she and I together, we wrote policies and procedures for the first building location, which she's gone now, that we've built on and was kind of provided the framework for that first one. Back then, assisted living was a little bit different. Regulations were different and allowed a little bit of room for us to make just a few mistakes, but we figured it out quick.
When did you feel like you were kind of on solid footing and you were ready to kind of open up another location?
My dad didn't wait for that. While I was running the first building, he had already purchased land in several other cities. And so I had a few months to get ready for the next one. Another city, probably 30 minutes, 40-minute drive from there. And that one opened. And then a few months later, another one, and then another one. And so I just had to quickly build a team and just get used to this growth mindset. And again, another thing that I didn't realize how good it was for me. I didn't have time to sit back. I just had to go.
And how big were each of these facilities? How many residents were you caring for? Roughly how many employees did you have?
Yes, good question, because that's kind of our model. Each building was 16 beds. So they're smaller and, just not as many employees. And that fits well because in Idaho, there's a 9 to 16 bed rule breakout. And so 16 able to be at the highest census count within that rules. And so each one of our homes are 16 bed. And then we come back around, we build another building next to it so we could break it out and have one assisted living and one as memory care.
And so what is this 9 to 16 rule? Because it seems to me like there would be efficiencies of scale to build much bigger facilities rather than lots of smaller ones kind of scattered around the city.
Certainly. And there's a lot of companies out there that have the larger buildings, and that's fine. It's just a different concept. Our belief has always been that folks want to live in a home, right? They live in a home their whole life. They raise their family. Now they're coming from their own home. They want to live in another home. And so the 9 to 16, that was probably confusing when I said that. Idaho Department of Health and Welfare has a set of rules for facilities within the 9 count to 16. You get over 16, it's entirely different building design. It's more of a commercial building, different set of rules. And the buildings start looking less and less like a home. Because if you're going to build 17, you might as well build 40 bed, just for economies of scale. And so they're different buildings. They still give great care, but this is a different building design, different feel. And so we've always liked that 16 bed model.
So you kind of use that limitation as, one of your points of differentiation. And it allows you to, rather than this, huge sort of
Hotel
apartment
feel.
complex looking facility, is more of a home style environment.
It is, yeah. If you walk in any of our buildings, it's going to look and feel like a very big, comfortable home, with residential style kitchen and furniture and, everything about it's going to look and feel homey, as opposed to, the larger resort hotel feel.
And you guys have stuck with this model throughout all the facilities that you've opened?
We have. And admittedly, there's some challenges to that, but that's just kind of our philosophy. Is the smaller, and they work well in the smaller communities. Idaho, there's a lot of rural communities,
Mm.
8 to 10,000, where a larger facility just wouldn't pencil. But we've been able to make it work with 16-bed building, and then later, a few years later, we'll come in and build another building next to it, also 16-bed. Then we can have an assisted living and memory care, like I shared a little bit ago.
Yeah, say more about that and sort of in general the services that you offer. Help paint a picture of what you guys can do for your residents.
Yeah, the industry is called assisted living, but within the assisted living industry, there's another differentiation called memory care. And I think people by now know what that is. Those who are suffering from memory loss, Alzheimer's, and they require just a little bit different services and care, and the buildings are required to be secured. Where we have some flexibility on their movements, and so the rules do require that they be separated between those who just require assisted living services, help with their activities of daily living, versus those who require activities of daily living as well as memory care services. Because their diagnosis, they're not safe, to be allowed to come and go, obviously.
No. When you were going through this kind of rapid growth that your dad was sort of driving for you by acquiring all this land and building new facilities, it had to have been a ton of challenges in that, especially as you're kind of learning your way through a new to you business model. What if you could encapsulate it? What was the one biggest challenge through that crazy growth period?
Well, several. My dad's challenge was finding the real estate and building an appropriate building. I mean, they're very asset intensive, a lot of resources. So there's the financing and all that side, which is difficult for any company. As far as that time, I was operations, it was finding good quality team members. You can't just hire anybody to come in. I mean, these residents that really need and frankly deserve people who have a heart for caregiving. And so it's making sure you have a team and they have to gel. And I suspect we'll talk more about that later, but they really have to work well together and be in it for the right reason. And they'll find people, it's not the highest paying job as well. I mean, they work very hard for not a lot of pay, some of them. It's one of the things I've been working on is really making sure we pay fairly.
Yeah, actually, let's go ahead and talk about that now, because this is a key thing in most industries, and yours in particular, where it's hard to find good folks. It's hard to hold on to good folks. The work is very rewarding, from what others have told me, but it's not always easy. What are some strategies that you've used, Mark, to both find these folks in the first place, and then once you've got them, to do a better job holding on to them, making sure they don't leave?
My answer is easy. I'll say with one word, but there's a lot to that to unpack. But it's culture. Mm. You have to have a great culture in this business, any business really. And the leaders that have figured that out, have really developed great companies. And so that has been my primary goal, particularly since my team's gotten larger, is build a company where people want to work for you. All of my people, they could leave and go somewhere else and make an extra 25 cents or 50 cents an hour. They could find a job to do that. They choose to stay because they like where they work. People don't leave bad jobs. They leave bad managers, right? They leave bad leaders. And so I don't want to use the word family too strong, but really that's the kind of feeling we have, is particularly with our residents there, is we all there have the same mindset, the same mission. And so that's been my number one goal, is to build a company that people want to work at. And that being said, we do try to, minimum pay market wages, as well as other benefits too. We have health insurance, the 401k, all the other tangibles that people need. But there's other things too that they're outside of the pay that incentivize people to stay.
Can you think of a particular story that might better help to encapsulate the culture that you've built there? Maybe the way that you were able to help take care of a certain employee, or the way an employee was able to help the company, or to help a resident in a particular way that kind of stands out a little bit in your head.
Oh gosh, I suppose if I had some time, I could think of some cool stories. But I see many stories all the time that remind me when I go around. I go around to go to the staff meetings and just listen in and just get a feel for what they're doing. I hear caregivers use words like "my company" or "my home," "my residence." When they start taking personal ownership, that's when you know that they're there. Burnout is when you feel like you're working on someone else's project. If you're working on your own goals, your own projects, your company, you don't get burnt out as easy. And so that's another one of my goals, is to make people feel like this is your company as well. These are your residents. Help me. And then I do a lot to just incentivize them and thank them for what they do, so they feel like, and I tell them all the time, you are what makes the company go well. So they really feel invested. I guess that's the word.
I love that, because what you're saying there. Maybe you're not thinking of a specific example at the moment, but you are often overhearing how your employees refer to my patients, my company, my organization. So whatever it is that you're doing is clearly having the intended effect of developing the culture that you value so highly. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I try to stay present. In the early days, I was in each home every day. Come in, I knew all the employees by name. I'd have lunch with them. I knew all of the residents by name. And as we've gotten more and more buildings, we're up to over 20 buildings now. Admittedly, I don't know every name, but I still reach out to them personally. Well, here's right here. This is my task list for the week. Their name, how long they've been with the company, and where they work. And I'm going to write them a handwritten note and send it to their home. Congratulations on hitting your 5th anniversary with the Cottages. Thank you so much for what you do. I appreciate you. This company is great because of you. And so, I've received help. I mean, there's someone in the office that prints this out for me and has all the dates. I don't have the time to do that. But by doing that, I'm able to just kind of stay in touch with them. And again, I go to staff meetings and do what I can.
That's nice. With 20 buildings, with staff of over 100 people, you're clearly a very busy guy. I'm curious why the motivation to join different groups like president of the Idaho Healthcare Association, the chair of the NCAL board of directors. What drives you to do that with all the other things that you have going on?
Yeah, I asked myself that many times. And clearly I couldn't do it without a solid team behind me, to carry the water, if you will, as I go do some of these things. But I care about the industry that much. As the industry grows, things could change. Regulations, obviously, with the government, funding. And so my objective has always been to be one of the decision makers so that we can keep this industry what it was intended to be. Great quality care for residents, patients, whatever word you use. And as it gets more and more in the limelight, particularly with our politicians, well-intended, they want to change it to fit what they think it should be, not what it really should be. And so that's why I involved myself so much, first on the state level, so I would have a voice in the state politics and be the expert in these committee meetings and stuff. And then I pretty much served all the positions there. I was encouraged to run for a national seat. And I've been on that on that board for, 14 years. And then I eventually ran for chair. And so I'm taking my turn as the voice for that. And I've had the opportunity to be on the Hill in Washington, D.C. many times. I meet with our senators and legislators and say, here's what that law is going to have impact on grandpa and grandma in small town Idaho. or small town anywhere. I can see why you like that, but it's really a dumb rule. It's a dumb law. Here's why. Recently would be the minimum staffing rule. And so, and I like that kind of thing. I've enjoyed that process. I enjoyed the board process. I was on school board for 15 years, on my local hospital board for 10 years. I enjoy the board process and the influence and touch that gets me with decision makers.
So you feel like you're having an impact in that work that you're doing. You feel like at least some of the people that you're meeting with are receptive to the feedback that you're providing.
Sure hope so. We definitely spent a lot of time doing, and to answer your question, yes, I have had an impact. As long as, it's not just me, everyone that's had the opportunity to serve on boards with me. We're all very passionate about this industry. Like I said, I've been in almost 24 years. And so if not me, who? I've always asked that question.
Not sitting around waiting for somebody else to raise their hand, stepping to the front of the line, raising yours.
Yeah, and then complaining about whatever comes down the pike. Well, I don't want to be complaining. I want to be there in the beginning, influencing what happens.
So you've got, would you say, over 20 buildings now? Are there plans for more? What does growth look like for you looking forward?
Well, I currently have one building under construction. This will be the second building in that town. So we've had a assisted living facility there for several years. Now we're building a new building, and we'll be able to do the assisted living and memory care. Recently closed on some land in another town. Going to build two buildings at the same time there, and I'm looking for land at other places too. So my growth strategy has always been to grow slowly and wisely, but where needed. I think there's a need for the cottages. There's other companies out there, and some of them do a great job. If you truly believe in your product and what you do, then you look for places where your company can build. And so, I still got a few years left in this business, and so my goal is to grow where it makes sense, and to happen. It's been fun.
What do you think are the biggest differentiators between you and some of the organizations out there?
Yeah, let me see if I can answer. I'm going to try and be polite. Every company has their own philosophy, I guess, and how they do things. And then there's a lot of good other facilities out there. I don't mean to, intend anything else. But our mission statement is very simple. We treat people right. And that you can see that from me down to the very first person here for their first day. And that's why the mission statement is so short. Anybody can memorize it. So all of our decisions are guided by that. We treat people right. And so it's really to say, our care is the greatest or whatever. And we do have great cares, but everybody in my company, they know what the mission statement is, they know how to interpret it, and they know what it means in their day-to-day activities. And so I like to think that's what sets us apart, is we're all on that same bus. Maybe I'm the driver of that bus, but that's a big bus, a lot of seats, and we're all on it with the same purpose.
As I think about your business market, it seems to me that you kind of serve two masters. You've got your patients, your customers, your clients, and then you've got your employees. And I'm curious, as you think about growth, which one of those is the more challenging aspect? Is it once the place is built, getting the beds filled, or is it getting the staff in there? Which of those two hurdles is kind of the most challenging for you in the current environment?
I think that's the best question you've asked me yet. And I'm glad you did, because my business, my philosophy changed for the better when I stopped thinking about, census, filling beds, residents, and I changed my focus to my staff. And I can't remember exactly when that was, but I think it was probably when I realized, I'm not in there every day passing meds. I'm not the one getting them out of bed, getting them dressed, getting in the shower, doing all those things. My people are. So if I care about good care for my residents, then I better make sure that I have the best staff. And so I have a little sign right here that says, I'm obsessed with the culture of my company. And I know that means taking care of my staff. And so the question was, What was different between the two?
You kind of,
Restate that too.
yeah. Which one do you find more challenging? And I think you kind of took the answer in a little bit of a different direction, which was great in that, hey, I there was a big breakthrough for you when you stopped focusing as much on how many, what's our occupancy percentage, and focused, what do my staff need? What do my employees need?
Yeah. Once I stopped trying to build a business and, build a team, the business took care of itself. So my focus is on building a team of people, from my C-suite folks all the way down to, again, the very brand new person who's there to scrub toilets. Once I worry about them, the business is taking care of itself. So has the census, so has the cares, quality of our food, everything. That was a huge breakthrough for me.
This is a recurring theme from a number of my guests, Mark. So I'd like to maybe peel back a layer of the onion here, if you don't mind, and explore this a little bit more, because I've heard this over and over again, that when I stopped trying to focus on the numbers or what was best for me, and I started focusing more on how can I help this person? What does that employee need? Do you have everything that you need to be doing well at your job? That, I don't know, like the clouds just sort of parted and things magically started to take care of themselves. Clearly, it's not magic. What do you think is going on? What happened when you had that mindset shift?
Stop seeing them as employees, and I know I refer to them as that sometimes just for ease, but and as people like you. They have homes, families, dreams. They're here because they need to work a job, they need a living, and find out what it is they want. Many people, and I tell them that every month I have a meeting for all new employees, new employee orientation. I tell them, some of you here just for a job until you're onto the better one. That's fine. Some of you here because you want a career. Some of you here because you want to move up, you want leadership, you want to become a nurse, whatever. I want to know what that is. My goal is to help you achieve that. And I've had many, many people over the years go from caregiver to leadership, caregiver to nurse, become an RN, get some skills until they apply for their next job. I'll help them write their resume. As long as they're their best here, or while I have them, I want to help them reach their goals. And when I realize that that's the best way to lead people, then they just, I don't know how to say it. They're better, they're happier, which translates to retention and happier employees and better employees. You're not going to keep every employee the rest of their lives. Some you don't want to. They don't want to. But while they're here, they're going to be at their best because they're happy.
You're letting them know that they're valued. And that's a big part of what plays into those, you overhearing those conversations about my company. They're saying, my patients, my clients, my customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You've given them that sense of ownership because you've helped them and you've taken care of them, that you've created an environment that they want to be at.
Yeah, and it's true. It is their company. They spend as many hours here as I do.
No.
They work just as hard as I do and anyone else. So they should say that.
So, obviously you guys have seen some significant growth, Mark. You're up over 20 different locations. You've got more that are coming. How do you, as you continue to grow, continue to maintain that close-knit, intimate feel inside of each of these facilities?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. There's things that I used to do daily. Obviously, I have other people doing as well now. I'm not in the homes every day, but someone on my leadership team is. And so do they believe as I did? Are they acting? Are they speaking? Are they doing everything when they're in those homes as I would have or as I want? And they're going to have their own personal touch to it, their own flavor. But if they're on board, if they're living the mission statement, it shouldn't matter if it's me or someone else. They're still seeing and hearing the same words, the same topics, same leadership principles from them as they did from me. And sometimes even better, because I've hired people that are frankly better than me at a lot of these jobs. And I tell them that, and it doesn't bother me to say that.
That should be the goal, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and you kind of touched on something there that I'd be curious to get your thoughts on. Is when you started this business, very small, one facility, you
Yeah.
have to wear all kinds of hats. You have to wear every hat, right? And you're
Yeah.
constantly checking on everything. You've got your hands on everything that's going on. And as you continue to grow, that's not sustainable. You can't do that. You don't want to do that because you become the bottleneck for everything.
Yep.
But not everybody who's a founder can continue to make the transition into a leader of a larger and larger organization, right? Like some people are really good at startup stuff, but they're not good at the team building and the delegating and putting the structure in place. And, these were things that you had to learn along the way. And I'm curious to hear, how did you learn those things? How did you make those transitions? Did you feel like they came naturally to you? Did you have to seek out coaches or mentors or classes that kind of helped prepare you for this?
Yes and yes. And I made some mistakes, of course, but it did in some ways become natural to me as I enjoyed the process. And I spent a lot of time, of course, reading. I've gone to classes. I've asked a lot of questions, and I've done a lot of thinking. I have, over in that corner of my office, I have my thinking chair, actually. And I don't take anything there, not my phone, not paperwork. It's just thinking about where my bottlenecks are, as you mentioned, what is needed. And through that process, and it's been decades, I have learned kind of what, and again, it's not perfect, what I've needed to do to get out of my own way to allow this building process, as you mentioned. As we grow into homes, it requires a different leader. It requires different leadership structure. And that's been probably one of the funnest parts of my job, is seeing myself change, and more importantly, seeing my leaders change. And that's probably where I get my most satisfaction, is creating leaders. I got leaders in the company now that are doing way more and doing it better than I did 15 years ago when we were at that point. And that's frankly where I receive my reward, is taking people who never consider themselves as leaders and working with them like I had to do with myself. And as I watched my dad, and he's long since retired, and helping them fulfill their goals and kind of reach plateaus that they didn't think they could. It's a lot of fun to watch that.
That sounds pretty cool. Mark, a lot of growth happens from challenges that we endure and overcome. I'd be curious to hear about a particular challenge, whether it's personal or professional, that you've gone through, how you got through that, and some lessons that you learned.
Yeah, there's been lots of little ones, maybe not real big monumental things, but early in my career, it was my wife and I, we had 2 young kids, and any new startup requires a lot of time. I was working a lot of hours. And so I'm just so grateful for my wife, who understood, and she was the one taking care of things at home. I mean, she was one, and then we had 2 more kids, and as I watched them grow, I started to have this feeling of a lot of regret. I'm missing football games. I'm missing dance recitals. What can I do? And so I had to learn to step away and trust leaders. Hey, you got this meeting. My little girl has, whatever it is. You fill in the blank, soccer game. And I had to be okay with leaving for a couple hours and going to personal things, family things, and trust that the business isn't going to fall apart. Anyone who thinks the business is going to fall apart when they're gone for 2 hours needs to get out of their own head a little bit. And I learned that sometimes it was for the good. And so I had that own personal challenge of being okay with someone doing things that I used to do, and spending time with my family, because all my kids are grown and gone now. Who would I be as a person? Who would I be as a leader if I had terrible relationships with them, or if I was absent during that time? And I can honestly say that I've done the best I could to do that, and it just, now I have that satisfaction, fulfillment now, which gives me the to the ability to continue to work hard now without regret. I made mistakes, no doubt, but
Was it a gradual realization for you, when your kids were younger, or was there kind of a light bulb moment where it was like, got to change tomorrow?
yeah, it was a couple of light bulbs. When I realized I was abandoning, my own personal things I wanted to do. Had to ask my wife again, how is it that did I run the washer? Teach me again. How do I change this diaper? Just ridiculous things that every man should know how to do. And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to be more present. And that sounds kind of silly, I guess, to admit, but those are things that I had to learn back when I was a young father and, trying to do both, build a business and build a family.
Well, it's exactly those kinds of things that we love to give voice to on this show. Things that are at times difficult to admit or talk about, and there's going to be so many people who listen to this are like, "Yeah, Mark, I'm the same way. I didn't know how to change a diaper. I didn't know where we kept the detergent." Thanks for giving voice to something that I was ashamed to admit.
And thank you to a great wife who understood at the same time, knew when to back off, knew when to push, knew when to raise the alarm, and understood the difference between all that. So a good support system at home is key to be able to do a business.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Mark, you often say that if you create a great environment for your team, you in turn create a great environment for your residents. Can you share a real world specific example that shows how that kind of played out, investing in that staff leadership and appreciation directly benefits the residents' care?
Oh, specific example, and that's hard because, and honestly, there is
It just
no
kind of
magic
shows
bullet.
up every day and everything that goes on.
Yeah, if there's one magic bullet, I'd write a book about it, sell 1 million copies, and everybody would be doing it. It's the little things every day and knowing the difference between what's important and what isn't important. And so, no, I guess I don't have one example. If you give me some time, I could think of probably 50 or 60 of them.
It's just something that it seems like it just kind of permeates the culture. And so there wasn't sort of one big breakthrough thing. It's just, it shows up every day in every way.
It's just being fully present in every moment. There's many times when it'd be real easy just to be like, kind of roll your eyes and think, oh my gosh, this again, I've already told her, or, that's just a stupid question. I don't do that. I just look at them. What's on your mind? How can I help you? Even if it's been the same thing before. And they don't know you've dealt with that 100 times with other people. To them, this is their crisis. This is their moment. This is when they're looking to you as a leader for an answer. And so, and I will say that's one thing I think I've been very good at is just being fully present for every person, whether it's a family member, a staff member, of course, residents. If I'm sitting across the table or standing next to them, they know they're the only person I'm thinking about in that moment. And it has been easy at times, but man, it's paid huge dividends. And now it's easy and fun because I see it works. I had to learn that. I don't know what helped me realize that unless maybe I just do it naturally or just kind of learned over time what's best. And I paid a lot of attention to things that work and things that don't work. Done a lot of things. They're in the trash can now. They didn't work, but the good ones, and I keep them. And now my leaders are doing those same things. I don't have to. They've watched me, and I've instructed it, and now they're instructing their leaders how to do it, and they're teaching. That's been the magic of this company, is just to see people become leaders. Now they're leading leaders, and those leaders are developing leaders clear in the home level, and perpetuates. Yeah.
So on and so forth. Talking about, you threw a lot of the things in the garbage can, things that you tried and didn't work out. And, my experience are mistakes. What appear to be our mistakes in the moment end up becoming our greatest teachers. Can you think of one of those things that you tried and it was like, oh man, that didn't work, but, ended up kind of fueling a better path for you ultimately?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask for one. Again, there's been so many. I think a lot of it's just been my focus, Am I focused on The financials. Yeah, and I got them right here. You have to look at the financials, make sure that you're running a business. But outside of that, what drives your business? What are some of um, the key drivers in your business? And I've outlined a formula, and now I teach that if you concentrate on this, this, and this, you will be successful. Success in these areas right here will cover up a lot of sins. Maybe it's a bad word choice, a lot of mistakes over here. And so basically it's just learning what things to focus on, not just financials, but in the day-to-day leadership. And so I just identified some key areas where this is where your attention needs to be. And if you do so, it works out.
Any particular daily practices or rituals that are helpful to you in setting your day right?
Yes, I spend time on myself every morning. I rise at 4:30 in the morning, which is early, but I have a 45-minute drive from my home into town here. And I do my hardest things first thing in the morning. My very hardest thing that's been in my life has been my jujitsu. I train Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the morning. You know, I'll be 56 next month. So I'm rolling around with these 20 and 30 something guys, and it's hard. But I do it because it's good for me mentally, of course, physically, and it's learning a good skill. And I go from there and I do some workout or ride my bike, whatever, come into the office, get cleaned up, get ready for the day, and I do the things I don't want to do first, you know, and then the rest of the day goes great. And so I just really make sure that I get my day started right by doing those hard things. It'd be real easy to sleep in or skip. And of course, it's helped me stay healthy, help me stay strong and present. And I allow other people the same thing. Hopefully it sets a good example for them as well.
So the hard thing for you in the morning is the jujitsu with these guys that are half your age. You come into the
Mm-hmm.
office, there's a space for you to get cleaned up there. And then do you
Mm-hmm.
continue to start your day with, or continue into your day with the hardest things in terms of like the work things that you have to
Yeah.
do? Like, all right, where's my list? Let's get to the
Yep.
hard one first. Yeah.
It's that one email that you got 2 days ago that you know you need to answer and you haven't done it yet,
Yeah.
you know, but it's open here. It's open on the other screen over here to remind you, I got to get to that. It's that phone call you don't want to make. It's that call with your banker, right, that you not looking forward to. I don't know. It's different for everybody. Looking at the calendar, looking at the schedule, and just kind of deciding what it is what your day can look like, what your week looking like. And I keep notes. I have a little thing over here at the end of the week. I have a color code if there's a good, medium, or bad week. So I kind of know how to reschedule my week for the next. And then I have my thinking time as well. Make sure I have my thinking time. Normally after lunch, I'm feeling good and relaxed, and it just helps me focus on the rest of the day. And then when I go home, I'm happy rather than bummed out about the things I still have left to do.
And so the thinking time, this happens after lunch. This happens in the chair that you described earlier. There's no notebook. There's no phone that goes with you. It's just sort of
Mm-hmm.
quiet time. And are you going in there with something specific to think about? Is it more like a meditation where you're trying to clear your mind, or what's the agenda?
Yeah, sometimes there's something very heavy on my mind. Something like you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, I'd like to get that 2 weeks of my life back. It's time to think about it. Other times, not so much. There's usually always something you can think about. It's a very comfortable chair, you know, and sometimes I'll even doze off for 15, 20 minutes. And I had to learn how to not be guilty about that. You know, sometimes a little 15-minute exercise with yourself that ends up maybe you just close your eyes and really get deep into it is okay, because I have some pretty big, heavy things I need to do. If I get those problems solved, it enables my people to have the resources and tools they need to do their job. If there's some things I don't do and get taken care of here, it's going to manifest itself down through the ranks below. So I just have to learn how to be okay with just thinking and coming to terms with some heavy stuff with just myself.
Mm. What's the best decision you ever made for your company?
Well, that's easy. Hire a company president.
Mm.
I was as I worked up, I was operations manager, then director of operations, and chief operations officer, and then Dad left. I was able to buy him out, and so I was president and CEO. I was very proud of that. I'm an operator, and I'm running this company. And look at the great job I'm doing, and I was doing okay. In the meantime, I had somebody that had been with me for 15 years that just day in, day out was just getting stuff done, helping me do things, making me look better than I was, frankly. I'm like, you know what? If I really care about culture, if I really care about growth, and make sure this company is ran properly, I can't do both. And so I just pulled her aside one day and I said, Jamie, you know what you're doing. There's things I need to work on that only I can do, but I can't if I'm in the day-to-day as much as I am. I'm in the weeds. And she said, I got this. And from that very next day, she took off running. My job is to stay out of the way, frankly. And she is doing better than I did as president. And I tell her that, and I tell everyone else who will listen to me that too. So when they look at her, they see her as the boss. I don't want people coming to me as the boss with these problems about this. They go to her, one, because she probably knows how to deal with it better anyway. And I'm able to focus on these higher issues that really need my time and attention, that I, as the owner and CEO, need to work on. Frees up my time, frees up her time, very clear line of authority, who does what. And so they go to her for a lot of the things, as they should, because she's the one taking care of it. So when I hired a company president and realized that there's people out there that know what they're doing, made my life so much better. And my culture has gotten better. My growth has been faster and better since then. I'm happier. She's happier because she's able to play in this space that she probably wanted to anyway for a while, and is doing well and make more money for her. And the company's been more profitable. I can't really think any negatives about it unless someone has an ego, wants both titles. That'd be the only negative. And it took me about 2 days to get over that.
Tip of the hat to you, because that's, I mean, it goes to what you were saying before about trying to hire people that are better and smarter than you for the roles that they're filling.
Yep. Yeah. And then get out of their way.
Get out of their way, and it clears out headspace for you to be able to do the things that you're better at and that you need to focus on.
Yeah. My thinking time, my exercise time. There's some days I don't make it in here at 8 anymore. Sometimes it's 9:30 because I'm just in a real groove. At the gym or on my bike ride. And of course I'm thinking about work stuff. So it's my thinking time on my bike, for instance. And you have to be okay with riding your bike on the green belt for an extra hour and you're not at the office. I used to identify myself with how many hours I could put in. Mm. Oh, I'm the first one there. I'm the last one to leave. Yeah, so what? How effective are you? Are you doing the right things? Are you making the right decisions? And I'm better at that now, because I allow myself that flexibility to be where I need to be. I hope that makes sense. I don't know.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs. I've certainly found myself guilty of this, where, I don't know, it's like we're competing for this invisible trophy of, right, how many hours did I work? How hard did I work? How stressed did I get? Nobody's handing out a medal for that.
No, nobody cares. Nobody's impressed, particularly your family and wife back home. And so what are you going to do? Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah. Mark, is there a particular book, a podcast, a course that's been really helpful for you in your development that might be good to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I got many here that I've done. This is a good one right here. Here's another good one. Crucial Conversations. This is one that I read called Leadership Isn't for Cowards by Mike Staver. It's a pretty simple read, frankly, but it's become my textbook to teach other leaders. I've done a lot of things to help me in my leadership, and this book helped me as well. But I use this book for my once a month leadership meeting for all aspiring leaders in my company. They come here to the home office, and they each get their own book, and we go through it like a textbook and have about 4 hours of training. And and like I mentioned earlier, my success as a company has come from taking people and building them to the leader they want to do. So this is one of the tools I use, and it's been a lot of fun.
What's one big lesson that you can teach us from that book?
You have to make the hard call sometime. I mean, the title is appropriate. Leadership isn't for cowards, because you have to realize that as the boss, as a leader, you're screwing up people's lives, right? You're telling them sometimes things they need to do they don't want to do. You're responsible for what they make, for their performance evaluations, for, you know, people spend more time at work than they do at anything other single activity in their life, maybe except for, sitting at home. And so you have a lot of authority and influence over them, and you can make life pretty miserable for them or good. And it's your choice. And once I learned that I had the opportunity to make life better for them, it just made me a better leader.
Mark, what's something that you wish more people knew about your industry?
So it's not going away. In fact, it's growing. The silver tsunami, you've heard that, right? I mean, I think it's next year the oldest baby boomer turns 80, and that's when they start coming my direction. So for the next 25 or whatever years, we're having just a massive amount of people that are going to be needing assisted living services. And the challenge will be, will there be access enough for all of them, particularly in rural communities? Will they be able to afford it? Will we have the staff available to take care of them? That's always constantly on my mind, is making sure that we have opportunities and places for seniors to go. And there's a need for it. And I really want people to understand that there's a lot of opportunities for it. It's a field or an industry that a lot of people maybe don't think about. No one really thinks about assisted living until they have a mom or a dad that needs it, or a grandparent, or they themselves. And so I would hope people consider it as a career track for someone. They can start as young as they're 18 as a caregiver and work their way up and really get some good skills and have a good career in this field, whether it's assisted living or skilled nursing, or, that's why I really hope people remember, and they will remember, as society is getting older, they'll definitely become more a topic of conversation. So
I'm glad that we touched on this because, there's a lot of sort of fear about, especially with AI coming into play, like,
yeah,
what are the future jobs going to look like? Maybe I'm a younger person, maybe I'm even in the middle of my career and, thinking about a career change and like, where can I go where I'm going to have some job security? And it seems like, senior care, this, as you said, it's not going away. It's becoming bigger. And in all likelihood, we're going to have a shortage of care providers. And so for people
yeah,
who are looking for a good, safe career path, it seems to me that this would be something that they would want to choose. And particularly as I hear you talk about how you like to help people inside your organization with personal development. So they come in and they're kind of a frontline, care provider, and there are opportunities for them to, if they choose to advance their career into, positions of leadership.
yeah. For certain, AI is going to be wonderful, and it's going to do a lot of great things for people. We're already starting to see some of the benefits here in assisted living with, note taking as far as documentation for on the clinical side and things. But until they build a robot, I guess AI is not going to give your mother a shower or help her take her meds. It'll help us document and record it quicker, but you're always going to require that personal touch, that face-to-face human interaction. It's going to be a while before I think AI replaces that. So there's always going to be a need for good people that like to connect with people, that have big hearts. And so I think we'll just see the benefits of AI in the industry for a while. I think it'll be a while before it replaces people.
Are you already using AI to help with some of the note taking and other sort of, more mundane tasks like that?
Yeah, we're just starting to do that. Just going to be switching CRM platforms, so to kind of help replicate some of the documentation that we're doing, making it quicker, easier. I've already seen some way people use it with some of their emails. They need long, detailed emails. I can tell they're using AI to kind of help formulate some of those things, which is fine. Just a few things, particularly in our software management that we use for our resident documentation. As far as their cares, their medication, some of those things. That's really going to, I think, revolutionize the industry in that regard, as far as time saving.
Yeah. And then giving the care providers more time to spend with the people who need their time, right? Less time with a keyboard, or less time with pen and paper, and more time with the human beings that need their support.
Less time with the computer, more time at the bedside. That's always going to be the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, I've just got one more question for you, but before I ask it, I want to do two things. First of all, everyone listening today, I know that you like today's content. Mark's been a great guest, shared a lot of wonderful stories. Please hit the follow or a subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you continue to get great content like this. Mark, I also want to let people know the best way to either get in touch with you or to continue to follow the Cottages or your story. What would that be?
Yeah, I welcome anyone to reach out. Obviously, my website, www.thecottages.biz. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Mark Maxfield. I'll give my email, mark@thecottages.biz.
Terrific. Lots of ways to reach out to Mark there.
Yeah.
So last question for you, Mark. As you look towards the future, what's the biggest thing that has you excited about this space? What are you excited about that's coming around the corner?
Well, it used to be that all the problems and things, not problems, but issues and concerns kept me up at night. Now I realize it's about what gets me up in the morning. What gets me up in the morning is really thinking about all the lives that I get to touch every day. It's the families, it's the staff, as I mentioned. That's really my passion, is working with staff and helping them. And of course, my residents, and there's going to be a lot more coming. And so my job has been to find smart growth. The challenge, of course, is financing and finding land, but it's building this company that building the team that's built this company that's been great. So your question, what's coming that excites me? I mean, I've been excited for 20 years, and so it's just doing more of this. As I tell my team, it's what got us here. It's not going to get us there, wherever there is. But because we made it here, I know we'll make it there. So it's just been learning what needs to change, what needs to shift, working with my team, and together just being able to adapt with the industry, which has certainly changed over the past quarter century.
Well, I liked what you just said. It used to be about what keeps me up at night. Now my focus is more on what gets me up in the morning. And it's not like the things that kept you up at night have suddenly gone away. It's not like there aren't any problems in the business. As the business grows, you've got more opportunities for more problems. But I think what I hear you saying is it's more about where you're putting your attention. Do you want to grind? Do you want your mental gears to grind away at night on those things that need to be solved, problems that are coming up, issues that need to be resolved? Or do you want to, turn your attention to what am I excited about? What's the fun thing that is going to help me hop out of bed in the morning? Am I hearing you right?
That's right. And those same concerns that supposedly keep you up at night are now the exciting things that I get to deal with in the morning, because I've learned how to think, how to work with them. So they're not problems anymore. They're challenges, and there's nothing more satisfying than seeing a challenge, kicking its butt, learning from it, and then just applying that to the next challenge and just building and growing. And I have the most fun when I'm sitting in meetings with my leadership team, and I just sit back and I just hear them talk back and forth about issues. And where I used to do a lot of talking, now I do a lot of listening and nodding and great job and just kind of challenge a little bit. Okay, very good. Now what are we going to do with that? And then see the conversation build and flow again. It's just, sometimes it brings tears to my eyes, actually, just seeing the way that again, these people that never envision themselves as leaders solving problems for their company. Their company.
That's a great way to wrap it up. Mark, I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor. Appreciate it.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.